Hello and welcome to this episode of Taking Flight. I'm Dr. Heather Dartez. I'm the Director of Graduate Programs here at Full Sail University. And I'm here today with some really amazing guests that are here to talk about the topics public relations and new media journalism. So we're joined today by two-time Full Sail graduates, Iyube Leber, I think I'm saying that right, but I'm going to allow him to correct me when we get to it. He graduated from our music production bachelor's program and our public relations master's program. We also have DeQuan Foster. He graduated from our creative writing bachelor's program and our public relations master's program. And then we have Sharon, who is a teacher here at Full Sail in our new media journalism program. And all of them are doing really exciting things in the industry. So Iyube is actually he's in charge of public affairs for the Department of Defense. So he actually works for the government agency. DeQuan he's a junior account executive for Allied Global Marketing. And Jeff actually has a really cool job outside of Full Sail, where he is an announcer for the University of Central Florida football and basketball team, which is really exciting. He's also the editor of Black and Gold Banneret. So I'm going to allow all three of our guests to share a little bit more about their background and their experience. And Iyube, can you correct me on the pronunciation of your last name, please?
So my last name is LeBear.
LeBear. Yes. Okay. Beautiful last name. Iyube,
Well,
can you share a little bit about your background and your experience and how you got to where you are today working with the Department of Defense?
sure. My background is a little different. I was a UPS driver for 14 years, and I didn't want to continue doing that job, so I made a career change and went to Full Sail. My bachelor's is in music production. I still do music, but while I was taking that course or going through that program, I wanted to explore more options, career options. So I took up public relations, got my master's in PR, and hit the communications road running. I started at Renewal by Anderson in marketing, and then after leaving Renewal by Anderson, I worked for Mood Media. Our client was corporate Walmart. I was their lead creative producer for some years, and now I work here at the Department of Defense as a public affairs officer. So it's been quite the journey.
That is quite the journey and very impressive, the things that you've been able to work on. Ayube, can you share a little bit for us about the differences between working for like the civilian world in public relations versus the government? Because I'm sure our audience has some questions about that.
There's a few benefits. There's also a lot of differences, but when it comes to the public sector or the Department of Defense, I like to call it the MBA of public relations because it's very high paced, very professional. There's a lot of challenges and there's a lot of talented people that you work with on a regular basis that you get to learn from. And one key difference from the outside, especially if you're coming into the outside, let's say media space as a PR person, brand new with the government, a lot of relationships are already built
Mm.
and you have somewhat of an advantage coming into it because it's hey, I work for the Department of Defense versus I am rookie that nobody cares about, which is a challenge.
You're right.
But there's still challenges to both because even though you come in with the government, it's still who are you and why are you
Hmm.
here, and you still have to prove yourself in both. That is one key difference to me. But work is work, and putting forth your best effort wins every time.
That's amazing. And you're joining us today from Maryland, correct?
Correct.
That's amazing. Okay, great. Well, now I'm going to turn it over to DeQuan. DeQuan, share with us a little bit about your background and experience. And you're joining us today from New Jersey, correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yeah, so first off, thanks for having me. So happy to be here. But yeah, so pretty much I kind of started with the creative writing bachelor's back in 2016. And as I sort of began to chart my career out, I think I always knew on some level I wanted to do something in the entertainment world, and I wasn't too sure what that looked like. So I started out by doing internships at publishing companies. I worked at Macmillan for my internship, which inevitably led to me getting a full-time job at Penguin Random House. And I love the world of publishing, but my passion and my heart has always been in like television and film. But I also felt like I wanted to hone my craft a little bit, and I understood that there were other aspects outside of just production, which I have the utmost respect for. But I said there's a business in the way that, we communicate and we convey these stories and we get people interested. So that's what allowed me to get in the public relations program. And from there, I just applied my skill set every day and was fortunate enough to find the current role at Ally Global Marketing, where we work with such phenomenal clients in the film and television space. And I'm super happy.
So exciting. Film and television, that has to be like a really fun job, like working on all those projects and helping with promotion for that. That's really cool. So thanks for sharing your background, DeQuan. And we're happy to have both of you guys here joining us today. You guys are both program advisory committee members as well. So you actually provide input on our curriculum, which we really appreciate you guys taking the time to do that. Jeff, I'd like you to share a little bit about your background and your experience, because one thing that sets Full Sail apart from other universities is that a lot of our instructors are also working in the industry while they're teaching here, which I think is awesome. And you have like the coolest jobs ever. So tell me a little bit about your experience and how you ended up where you are today.
Well, I'm no different from that. I started out as a recovering television news reporter and working in sports as well in Georgia. I worked, and then I worked in-house at UCF in the athletic department, producing a TV show, everything from writing it, shooting it, editing it, producing it, end to end. I've been at Full Sail now for 13 years, and it's been a blast every time. I helped to launch the new media journalism program when we started it. And on the side, as you mentioned, I founded, and I'm now the managing editor of blackandgoldbanneret.com. It's a blog that covers UCF athletics for SB Nation, which is part of Vox Media. We pump out articles, we do podcasts, video shows, everything like that. And on the side, I'm also the public address announcer for UCF football and men's basketball and whatever other sports that they want me to scream into a microphone into. So that's fun. There's a little bit of journalism in all of it, and I've always been drawn to that.
That's really cool. I'm a UCF grad myself, so go Knights.
Charge on.
Charge on, absolutely. And they're right up the street here from our university, so we're all good friends with. We do a lot of things with the University of Central Florida, so it's really great. I want to do a quick shout out because I know we have some students that are watching us today from our Linked Up networking session, which is happening. It usually happens in the auditorium and it's open to all Full Sail students. So if you're a Full Sail student, I recommend that you go monthly. It's usually on the third Wednesday of the month as our monthly sessions happen here at Full Sail, our monthly classes. So shout out to everybody that's watching us today from the auditorium. And yes, definitely encourage all the networking we can do here. So you never know how that next relationship can help you get ahead. So as we get into this topic, public relations and new media journalism, Jeff, can you tell us the difference between these two, or like similarities and differences? Because we have two different degree programs at Full Sail. One is public relations masters. Another one is our new media journalism masters. And I know a lot of students, potential students, have questions about which path they should go on if they want to, or if they're trying to decide between the two.
Sure. So, there are a lot of, like you said, there are a lot of similarities and differences. Starting with the similarities, you got to have a very similar skill set. You need to be a good writer. You need to be fluent in multimedia, be it photography, videography, video editing, all that kind of stuff. Web design to an extent, and being a good custodian of information on both sides. The differences are in public relations, you're representing, say, a government agency, or it could be a political candidate. More often than not, it's going to be a company or a brand. You're managing their public image. So you're coming at it from that perspective. On the journalism side, you're representing an audience. Could be the public in general, could be people in Orlando if you're covering Orlando government. It could be people who are really into Star Wars if you're running a blog about Star Wars, for example. So traditionally they've been seen as diametrically opposed, but the skills are very similar. The difference is who you're doing the work for.
Right. Okay. Good explanation. I appreciate that because I know there's a lot of potential crossover.
Yeah.
But they're two distinct areas. So I wanted to make that clear from the beginning. But they do go hand in hand, right?
Yep.
So I want to start off by talking a little bit about current trends within these industries because, and we talked about this a little bit beforehand, DeQuan, can you start us off? Because I want you to share a little bit about how artificial intelligence is really having an impact on these industries. And then I'll allow Jeff and Iyube to share as well.
Yeah, so I mean, uh, AI is becoming a lot more prominent in our everyday use and in our everyday lives. And as we're starting to see more and more of it, I think one of the key things that we're trying to be aware of is just how we use it very ethically. It's great for using it for foundational tools such as like writing a pitch or a press release, but it's not quite there. It doesn't really have that human touch. It can sometimes in its writing it can come off as very inauthentic, and I hope I'm not upsetting it in a very Terminator Skynet way when I say that. But but it's pretty much figuring out the balance of using it as a tool. And like we talked before, I think that there's apprehension to it because I think a lot of people are afraid that it's going to replace them in a sort of way that automation has replaced a lot of jobs. But the way I personally view it, and I know other people weigh in on this, is that Microsoft Word was a new tool at one point, Excel was a new tool at one point. Even Spotify and Apple Music and the way we listen to music. I think as technology has grown, we've been apprehensive to new tools at first, but the more time we spend with them and learn their ins and outs, we get better at them and figure out their great use for everyday use. So that's definitely just a trend that I've seen, is just figuring out the everyday use of it.
Yeah. How about you, Jeff? What do you have to share about this?
I'm just like DeQuan said, it's a tool, right? And I do think that our sort of public perception of AI has been clouded a little bit by sometimes what we've seen in the movies. I think DeQuan, you kind of referenced that, but as with any technological tool, it's garbage in, garbage out. If you rely strictly on a generative AI to create any sort of content from scratch, it's going to be anything from absolutely terrible to just to aggressively anodyne, is how I would say it. But it is an extremely useful assistant. We did an experiment where with a virtual class where I had our students generate 5 story ideas for their upcoming week using Chat GPT. And did it come up with everything that we needed to? No, but it at least got our minds working and their minds working in the right direction, saying, okay, I think I can use this story idea. Now I'm going to do my own research to see if this makes sense. At least it can help you get it. It's a really good digital assistant. Yeah. But you have to be careful that you're not the one who becomes the assistant to it. It has to assist you.
Yeah, great point. How about you, Iyube? Like, tell us a little bit. Are you using AI at all in your job day to day? And how does that?
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
In my day to day, no, I do not use it in my 9 to 5, but I do also have my own separate business, Line Leader Media. And that I do use it because one of my colleagues put it best, and I kind of want to piggyback off of what DeQuan said, especially with that ethical piece. But like everyone was saying, you want to use it as, like we call it, a creative partner,
Right.
and it does a great job of getting your mind going, giving you ideas, and sometimes what I might use it for outside of DOD is to give me outlines. Like I use it a lot for, hey, could you just give me an outline on this idea? And then that way I could look at it and decide like, oh, this is what I want to work off. This is the
That's great.
foundation I want to work off because we don't always have the answers. It's like a calculator to me. But going back to what DeQuan was saying as far as being ethical, and also what Jeff said is you never want the tool to master you, and that
Right.
is the Skynet piece.
That's great advice. And you're right. It is a really great tool as a starting point for idea generation, right? I think that's great. But also know, and one thing that we've learned too here at Full Sail as people have been using AI in different capacities is that it's only as good as the data, right? And if everybody's using it and asking the same question, it's always going to give you the same answer. So it's really hard to find originality, right? And so that's where it takes a human touch. So a really great answer on that, guys. So I want to talk a little bit about how public relations has really evolved in the context of new media journalism. So what are some of the key challenges that you guys face in your roles? And I'll allow DeQuan to go first on this one again too. Any key challenges?
Yeah, I think any role has its like set of challenges. But I think that just and the way that it's evolved, I think the main thing is just like you're up against the internet now. In a world where like any story can be published very quickly, you always just want to make sure you're delivering things with proper context. You want it to feel authentic, and you want to be transparent in that. Um, I think that when things occur, you definitely just want to get in front of them. And sometimes in a fast-paced culture, I think we have this attitude where we feel like we have to get it out quick, we have to get it out fast, and sometimes it's not about being first, but it's about getting it right. So, I just think that in the face of these emerging technologies, it's figuring out how to best adapt to using them, and just figuring out how to give an authentic voice to the things you want to say, when it's very easy to have it all drowned out.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And actually, I'm going to have a follow-up question as it relates to this as well. Because you had mentioned like new technologies and like social media is a huge aspect, I'm sure, of your jobs as well. Can you guys speak a little bit to how social media, is important as it relates to crafting stories? And Iyube, you specifically talked about TikTok earlier. So can you tell us a little bit about TikTok and then we'll allow you guys to expand?
Um, I will speak to social media in general.
Okay.
One of the things that DeQuan spoke about was not rushing
Mhm.
to respond. Um, the key to me is sticking to the plan, sticking to your crisis plan, sticking to whatever you foundational plans you already have, because at any given moment somebody could say something on social, especially from our perspective, and you want to get out there, but how does that impact the brand?
Mhm.
If
Mhm.
you just respond to every little thing, if any query, any negativity, dare I say conspiracy, comes up, what if you just spent time responding to all of that and that wasn't in the plan? So now you just basically shot a very strong foundational plan or a defense that you had that you didn't have to change. I mean, I
Yeah.
think what Daquan said when it comes to social media is so key. And I mean,
Yeah.
I've seen it from the outside, uh, where people will just jump up like, oh, we have to respond to this, we have to respond to this, but you don't. Like, even if it's coming from, let's say, a small tier journalist, you don't have to respond to them.
Mhm.
Stick to the
That's
plan. I think that's like the strongest key is sticking to the plan
excellent.
when it comes to social.
Excellent. Now, Jeff, can you talk a little bit about like navigating potential risks? And I mean, I know stick to the plan, which is great, but like as it relates to social media in and of itself, like how can you use those tools to navigate risk and also like create connection with your audience and improve your image?
Well, from a journalism perspective, yeah, I think that um, the big challenge on that side is exactly what we heard Iyube speaking to, which is do you if you try to respond to everything, you're just going to get swamped.
Mm-hmm.
And having a firm base in your ethical standing, having your facts on lock, I think is so important because people can argue, will try and argue every little aspect of it. But if you have what you have down on lock,
Mm-hmm.
then you can stand in your own confidence of whatever it is that you're reporting and say, okay, this is you can say whatever you want. This is what we reported. And I wanted to provide one more example too, of what Iyube was talking about. Like I'm kind of a nerd for sports branding,
Uh-huh.
uniforms, logos, things like that. And I remember the LA Chargers, they unveiled a logo,
Mm-hmm.
put it out there, and the reaction on social media was so negative that within hours they canceled the logo. They
Wow.
they took it away. But my thought on it, when I first looked at it, was it's actually not that bad. Like why you have to be careful not to let the immediate reaction govern your long-term thinking and your long-term planning.
Yeah. That's a really great point and great way to reinforce it. DeQuan, is there like a favorite social media platform that you prefer to work with?
Probably right now, it's probably just Instagram. I think that uh, it's the easiest in terms of just like there's a visual component that allows for context to exist a little bit easier than if it's just text. And it's a lot less work, although it does have the Reels option. It's a lot less work than TikTok, where you actually have to do a lot more like video editing. And props to anyone who uses these platforms on a consistent basis. I have nothing but the utmost respect for you because it's hard to get it out there. Because sometimes I think that people, they put content out for the sake of putting content out, but to master these platforms in a way that you don't lose the voice of your brand in the process, that's a skill and an art in itself. But it's definitely Instagram that's probably my favorite.
Awesome. Very cool. So let's talk a little bit about like one of the big things that happens like within the social media arena is anybody can say anything, right? There's like so much user generated content. There's like, citizen journalism. There's a lot of like ways that people can just express their thoughts within those spaces. So how can you, I know, stick to the plan, but how can you effectively like navigate that landscape? I mean, if given a topic, like you mentioned conspiracy theories over there earlier, Iyube, say it just keeps reoccurring and things keep just popping up. Like, how do you regulate all of that crazy stuff that happens in those spaces? Do you want to talk first, Jeff?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that we've been thinking about, recently is it's hard to separate the short term from the long term, but I think we're starting to see it a little bit. And what I mean by that is we're seeing more and more digital natives are in the space now, right? More and more of us have been born into a world where the internet is a thing. And so are, for lack of a better term, BS filters are a little bit more finely tuned as a whole. So I think this will actually, as journalists, that's a good thing. You want to be naturally skeptical of everything, right? We're supposed to question authority to some extent, in addition to providing information on things we like. But I think this makes the job for the PR professional more difficult.
Yeah.
Because again, the general public, I think, as a whole, is becoming more skeptical of information, sales, misinformation. We know it's out there. If something doesn't pass the smell test, we're gonna let you know about it. And so that does make the job for the PR professional a lot more difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine, and because anybody and everybody can say whatever they want, and this whole like era of like fake news, and people, you see so much segmentation now where people are like coming together on certain ideas, and social media just creates this space where things like that can just like thrive and take root. Where
the
back in
echo
the day,
chamber, that's right, yeah.
Back in the day when we had like print media and stuff, it was like very easy to like send a message and exactly the message that you wanted to send. Where now it's like you're getting all of this crazy noise, within these spaces. So it's a really challenging time to navigate public relations and journalism.
Yeah,
So.
finding the signal in that noise is a finely tuned skill. Anyone can learn to edit video or write really well, but developing that skill, that takes time and effort and reps.
Yeah, absolutely. DeQuan, did you have anything you wanted to add to that? Because I know we chatted a little bit about this earlier.
Yeah, no, I think I think pretty much I agree with a lot of the things that Jeff said. I mean, like even with platforms, it's definitely becoming a lot harder for the PR professional because people want the things that they're engaging with to feel authentic. They want it to feel real. They don't want to feel like they're being sold something or being padded out with a lie or just they want it to feel like it's the truth in the most like authentic way possible. And sometimes that means almost oversharing information with them, like, hey, here's the research to support this, here's the cited sources to support this. You have social media sites now engaging in developing community notes sections, and they'll try to do their best to flag, but it's hard to moderate very large platforms that millions of people can post things on at seconds. But I think that it's just a matter of really like from a consumer customer personhood basis of engaging with it, like just taking the extra minute to do the extra legwork. But on the professional side of it, for the folks disseminating that information, is just like doing your due diligence to, give them all the facts, all the information. And sometimes it's not always going to be in our favor, but I think that people will respect you more for having integrity than for getting caught in the middle of something.
Yeah, that's great advice. Iyube, I have a question for you as it relates to this from the perspective of the Department of Defense, right? I'm sure with all the political views that are out there and opposing political views, how does the government like navigate that when you've got we're in such a polarizing time from a political perspective?
I can't really speak to politics, but
Mm-hmm.
as far as on the Department of Defense, before I even go into that, the term that you used, citizen journalism,
Mm-hmm.
that is brand new to me. I might take that from you. I've never heard that before.
You're welcome to take
Um,
it.
but one of the main things to speak to this, because I mean, it's stuff all the time
Uh-huh.
that we have to deal with negatively. But in my role, a lot of what I do revolves around working with respected journalists.
Mm,
And because certain publications, they present the facts and they're neutral journalists. They're not leaning, and those are the places that we go to in these situations to keep reiterating what the facts are. Because one thing I've learned in my role is not everybody watches C-SPAN,
mm,
and majority of the facts are really on C-SPAN. But
right.
also there's younger audiences, and shoot, even people my age who do not read the Times, they don't read
Mm-hmm.
articles where a lot of things are disseminated in a factual manner. Um, what I see, and a lot of people might see this over the past few years, is overall the Department of Defense and different people, different agencies within the community are trying to be more transparent when it
Mm,
comes to social. And that is a new frontier, to say the least,
yeah.
uh, that has just come about in the last few years. So that is that is all I can offer on that topic. But from my role,
Uh-huh.
dealing with it is to continue to present the facts
I love
to
it.
the relationships that we already have. It's not
Mm-hmm.
just it's mainly legacy media. So from television, you might see certain things come up, certain interviews come up with certain people. Those are the facts that we're presenting.
That's awesome. And that's great to know that that's the perspective, present the facts, be transparent, and I love that there's more of an era of transparency because I think that's what people
Mhm.
are looking for. That's great. So, Jeff, I have a question specifically for you as
Okay.
it relates to, the sign of the times, like where we are today, right? So, can you give me any successful examples of organizations who are adapting and thriving in this area? And I know we talked earlier about, how this is a new era for entrepreneurs. So, can you talk to that?
Yeah, to start off, I think there's a lot of doom and gloom out there about the journalism industry. I tend to disagree with that. I think if you're part of a larger, what we would consider the traditional corporate journalism industry, yeah, the industry's changing. It's flattening out in a way, actually, that the music industry
Mm,
has done over the past, I would say, decade and a half.
mhm,
We're seeing a lot more success among individuals who have turned to a sort of entrepreneurial journalism based on different platforms that they're good at telling stories on, and smaller organizations. I think we're starting to see a return to more local news, but not necessarily from like your local TV station or your local paper, but from websites and blogs and places that have a social media presence that are on the ground and seeing actual things that are getting missed that have a real audience for it. There's always been an audience hunger for news within our community. I know the community that I live in. We have a new blog that actually we just talked to a couple of weeks ago on a combined virtual class session that was great. Oviedo Community News,
mm,
and they are right in there covering stories that even years ago, say the Orlando Sentinel or local TV stations here in Orlando would not have covered in this community. And I think that's a good thing. I think that's maybe it's not the big business that it used to be, but it's becoming a lot more small businesses. And that is, I think, good for the news consumer and for the public at large.
Yeah, that's really exciting. And it's true. I mean, it's the wild, wild west, right, of information. So that's great to know that it's creating opportunities for people as well. So let's talk a little bit about the ethical considerations as it relates to transparency, misinformation, and maintaining trust. I'm going to start with you, Iyube, because you shared with us about the transparency of your of your goals within your organization. Tell us about some of those ethical considerations that we have to consider.
Yeah.
You have to consider your source. Where are you getting the information from? I mean, to me, and this is me personally, when I go on social media, my favorite platform is Instagram, and not just when it relates to, things of the government, but just your everyday thing or everyday situation, there's misinformation on everything. And then there's so many opinions out there. And for me and what we do, it's I hate to say it like this, but you just have to disregard it.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to stick to the facts because that's what we do. And I'm thinking of something else and I'm kind of going off in a tangent in my mind. So could you bring me back into your question?
Yeah, just like what are some ethical things that we need to take into consideration when we're communicating, ideas about our brand or journalism, anything else outside of considering the source?
Outside of considering the source, is you should know the information. Never assume.
Mm-hmm.
Never put yourself in a situation, if you're a PR professional, where you are believing what you're giving to the public might benefit something in the long run, but it's not facts because
Mm,
anybody could fact check as well.
right.
And if something happened maybe 10 years ago, we live in a world where there are internet detectives
Mm,
and they will find what you said and present it back. So you have to be your own foundation as well. Just trust in
mm-hmm.
the facts that know the facts in and out.
That
And
is
I
really
said
great
facts a
advice.
lot of times, but
Well, the facts are
there's
important.
Yeah.
yeah, just give me
um,
the facts, Mel.
I love it. How about you, DeQuan? What other ethical considerations are you thinking about?
I mean, I agree a lot with a lot of the things that Iyube said. I think that we're in an era right now where we're starting to see a lot more accountability happen, right? I think it is important to do your research and do your homework and to try to be as objective as possible. And we're human, right? So that's a little bit harder. But I think in the past you would very rarely see, a publication or a publisher or hosting website openly apologize or print a retraction. But I think that
Mm-hmm.
as we've sort of just come into this new era of internet detectives and folks who can do their own homework, just the language that we're using surrounding the way we talk about stories being covered or events or just like any information in general, we'll see like updating and we'll see sources post that this is the information that they have as of this moment in time or as of this time period. This is all we know, and they don't try to go above that because I think they're aware of just in the era we live in how that can be a backlash. So it's just really like a lot of accountability I'm starting to see a lot more of, and that makes me a little bit happier, and it gives me hope that we're definitely going in the right direction.
That's wonderful. Well, let's talk about one thing that has never gone away as it relates to both of these different areas that we're talking about today, and that's storytelling. So I would love, Jeff, for you to start us off and tell us a little bit about crafting compelling digital narratives, and if you have any specific examples of how that has like drawn in an audience or helped tell the story.
Oh yeah, I mean, there are so many different, examples of different things that we can do. But I what I come back and tell my students all the time, and Iyube and DeQuan, I think you guys can appreciate this too, is storytelling. I think as I mentioned before, is a universal skill, and that takes time to develop. But it's something that we can go back to the very beginnings of human civilization. It's always been, really important. The tools that we use for it, can come and go. It's one thing to say, well, I want to learn, Photoshop or Adobe Premiere, and those are wonderful, but sometimes those tools will be gone in 10 years. But the true skill of storytelling is something that I think endures, and it's something that we try to teach as well all the time here at Full Sail for those very reasons. And I've seen it come up in my own work as well, where people want to latch on to stories of humans and dealing with the issues that they have, learning more about people who they hear about. And the one thing that I think is really cool, Heather, that we're seeing a lot more of is there are stories in data now. I think that's the new form of investigative journalism, is data journalism.
Yeah, that's a great point. Absolutely. And how about you, DeQuan? How does storytelling apply to your job on the day-to-day?
Well, and working in the world of like film and television, storytelling is just like the lifeblood of it. We come up with these elaborate sort of activations and campaigns to figure out how we can extend the stories that these studios want to share with folks in the world. So, what we're trying to do is get to what the core of the story is, right? So for example, just taking something like E.T., a lot of people are like, oh, it's a story about, this boy and an alien. And it's like, actually, it's a story about like a dysfunctional family. And how can we, allow that human aspect, like Jeff said, that thing that's relatable for all of us, how can folks really tap into it? And then to just build upon that, and a lot of the just trends that I'm seeing in terms of like digital narratives and just the way that we're doing a lot more like storytelling now. It's a participatory culture now. More people want to feel like they're a part of these stories, or are a part of just the experience of being able to enjoy it, because it's one thing to just sit and watch something, but it's like, how can we elevate that to the next level and allow folks to really feel like they have a personal investment in this? So that's definitely something I'm starting to sort of see come to light a lot more. And like Jess said, storytelling has been passed down through generations. It's a part of just like human culture as a whole. And to really just see it evolve in our generation, in our era now, it's truly something to marvel at, because it makes me think about just the possibilities of where we can go as well.
I loved your ET example. Takes me back to my childhood and watching it on VHS. So I'm showing my age. Iyube, how do you use storytelling in your role?
So I use storytelling a lot when I make pitches. So if I pitch to a journalist, what I like to do is research what their beat is, what is something that they write to, what is their language, what is the sentiment, how do they feel when they write something, and I use storytelling to pitch. So if I say, let's say if DeQuan was a journalist and I'm reading his articles, I know the things that he likes. So if I present a story to him, it's kind of like knowing your audience. If I present a pitch to him, I pitch it in a way either on the phone or sending him an email. That's how I use storytelling, but it's tailored to said journalist. So that's how I use it on a day-to-day basis.
That's wonderful. So this is a live stream. We have a live audience that's joining us today on social media. I want to remind them that we are taking questions from the audience today. So if any of you guys have any questions, you are more than welcome to share them in the chat. And we have our wonderful production team. Hats off to our production team, because they keep us moving. They're going to share those questions with us today. And we're happy to allow this amazing panel of experts to answer your questions. So before we get to that, I have one more question for you guys that's on my list here. And this is as it relates to measuring success. How do you know if the communication that you've had has been successful? Like, how does that, are there metrics that are used within the organization? Jeff, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I think that one of the keys on that, and this is one of the things that we try to caution our students on as well, it's easy to make that metric be how many people, page views, for example, or video views or any of that. But if you go chasing views, it's going to eventually lead you down a very rough ethical road, which is a euphemism for, basically saying it's not going to turn out for you very well. I think that the measure of success in any sort of content, with any storytelling, is does it endure and do people remember it? When they're following this, from the start to finish. And again, that speaks to a real skill of storytelling, is how do we emphasize things that people have a certain takeaway from a certain story. So is that easy to quantify sometimes? Not really. We do see it sometimes. And if you have an old story that's still getting page views later on down the line, I like to see that long tail in the analytics. Those are the kinds of stories to me that matter. And those are the ones that I find to be, not just from my own work, but also seeing my students' work, the most successful, that people come back to it and reference it.
Very cool. Do you guys have anything to add, DeQuan or Iyube, as it relates to how you measure the success of your job, what you're doing?
Yeah, sure.
We'll have
Okay.
Iyube, you go first.
Okay. One of the things with public affairs, public relations, is always a constant topic of how do you measure. I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
been even coming into in the program. That was one of the things we learned, like how do you measure? Of course, with metrics, you could do that with social. But to piggyback off of what Jeff said, is you never want to just look at views or whatnot, because in my opinion, with public relations, it's like a marathon. The work that you
Mm.
do today, you might not see results until 5 or 10 years later.
Wow.
But
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, even tying back into something I said earlier, it's always about the foundation. And what I like to do, at least to remind myself of what work has been done or where I am, is recap. And I stink at recapping. But
Mm-hmm.
you have to uh, write down, even if it's a case study, put together what took place, what happened, what lessons are learned, because that's how you keep the marathon going, in my opinion. And
Yeah.
you have to be able to bring that back to your customer, like, hey, this is what has been done from our perspective. We've hit this goal because we've made brand awareness here. I mean, I'm sure everyone understands what I'm saying, but this is what it is to me. It's the marathon and recap. That's what it is to me.
Wonderful. Any other comments, DeQuan?
I think Jeff and Ayube hit it perfectly on the head. I think, for me and the work that we do, it's talking to people, right? You can very easily in this day and age pay for presence, and what that means is you can, pay for billboards, you can pay for ad space, you can pay for trailers, you can pay for space on social media. But it's about the enduring legacy of what you've built. I make it a point, and it's a part of the job that when we do an advanced screening of a film or of a first few episodes of a brand new series, we talk to folks after. We really see what stuck out with them, what they liked, and we include that in our recaps. I'll just use a really brief example. Everyone was worried when Avatar 2 came out as to whether or not it was going to cross $1 billion, because it just didn't immediately do gangbusters in the weekend. And if you look at James Cameron's films, they have legs. They usually
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
continuously build that momentum, and by the time they finish the box office run, then you're like, oh, that was amazing. Because sometimes it's not about just like that, like flash pan immediate success. Sometimes it can be a slow build. It's about seeing the vision 8 months out, 10 months out, 8 years out, 10 years out, and really creating something quality that you're proud of, that you can go back to and say, I'm really glad we did this. And folks might have not appreciated or understood it in the moment,
Uh-huh.
but they'll get there.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
and I think you probably have the most tangible metrics of all of our guests here today, DeQuan, because it's the success of, like, are people watching your movies and your TV shows, right? So yeah, I really appreciate your comments on that. So now we're going to open this up to our audience, and we already have several really great questions. I'm going to direct towards you guys individually, just based off of the topic that they shared and what you specialize in. And you can jump into as well if I don't direct it towards you, if you have something really passionate to share on the topic. Iyube, specifically as it relates to your side business outside of the Department of Defense, you're kind of an entrepreneur in that area, in that space, correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so with your experience, can you tell us a little bit about public relations as it relates to entrepreneurs and what they need to know when building up their brand?
The what I could say is going way back to something Jeff talked about when he talked about new journalism and being
Mm-hmm.
well-rounded as far as, being able to do photography, shoot something. When you are an entrepreneur, you have to have some form, in my opinion, of being a jack of all trades.
Mm-hmm.
If you go on my website, you will see all the things that we offer. And just for transparency, we is me. And these are things
I am
these
we.
yeah, I am we. These are things that I've learned from Full Sail and just from being a creative myself. These are skills that I've been able to build up to present to a customer. And, education just made it that much better. You have to have that if you're going to be an entrepreneur, because I mean, there's going to be times where you won't be able to even get an intern to help you. You have to be able to go in these rooms and know everything to a certain extent. You don't have to be perfect, but you have to
Okay.
have a leg in each thing that you present.
That is excellent advice as from my perspective as being an entrepreneur outside of Full Sail as well. So really great tip there. I'm going to direct this next one toward Jeff, and this is as it relates to using your curiosity to your advantage. How can, like, especially as somebody who's a journalist, right? How can you use your curiosity to your advantage in this space?
I love that word.
Me
I'm
too.
telling you, it's when students come to me and say, I don't know what to write about, and that does happen.
Mhm.
I tell them the same thing. Well, what are you curious about? What, and it kind of taps into our youth a little bit.
Mhm.
The things that we were always, really interested in as kids, and it's a very visceral thing, that
Mhm.
curiosity. I've always let my own curiosity guard, or guide rather, my work as a journalist, and I try to pass that down to our students as well. And we've seen some really good results. It will knock down the writer's block when you really think about, okay, what am I curious? What makes me think? Oh, why is that? Oh, what makes me want to find out more about that? And tapping into that is it will open up the universe to you if you're a journalist.
Mhm.
And it's a wonderful thing to see it come to fruition, because once you hit it, you don't want to stop.
Yeah, that's great. Excellent. I love that question as well. Um, so your next up, DeQuan, I'm going to ask this question to you. What are some technology tools that you use on the day, like on the day to day, to add automation to your job?
So the wonderful thing that we have at Allied is that we have a platform that's actually we've customized through like the foundation of Chat GPT. Um, so we have been like all trained on it and how to use it so wonderfully, and we go into it and we're able to ask it like, hey, can you ideate some like great notes that I should include to this partner that we would love to partner with to maybe, and it can be something as simple as like we want to bring a costumed character of Garfield to this location, and it'll give pretty good suggestions, and then of course we'll build on top of that. We'll customize it. We'll sort through all the noise, if you will. But that's something immediately that I can think of that is a way that we use a tool, an automated tool, to really like just enhance the work because there's certain little aspects that you just don't think of. We're human. And it's always sort of good to just have a resource there that can easily just tap into the web and pull things that you might not even think of immediately.
That's wonderful. Great advice. As it relates to the golden rules of public relations, okay?
Mhm.
What do you consider to be like the most important, the golden rules of your job? And I'll kind of address all of you. You want to start us off, DeQuan?
Yeah, I think for me, one of the golden rules of my job is to, be original, and to just be authentic. Um, it's not about trying to oversell something or overpromise something, but just, being direct but kind, right? And being thoughtful and engaging in the way that you talk to folks, but just never overpromising something and never coming off as inauthentic. I think honesty and integrity are the main like foundational principles that I try to use both in work and in my personal life. So it kind of goes hand in hand. But that's
I
probably
love
like
that.
the foundational rule.
That's great. Iyube, what are your golden rules? Especially as it relates, because their question is kind of direct, more from an entrepreneur standpoint. Do you think there's any golden rules of public relations as it relates to entrepreneurs?
When it relates to entrepreneurs, I can speak for myself because I wanted to answer this question and kind of piggyback to what Jeff was saying as far as curiosity. To me, a golden rule for me personally is curiosity. I was raised by my grandmother to always have your childlike curiosity. It makes
Mm.
your adulthood more fun and it makes you learn more um, because we're consistently or constantly learning and public relations because you're always building relationships. You're always learning from someone else when you speak to them. I mean, Daquan and me got to speak about a movie
Mm-hmm.
earlier today, and I mean, even in that short conversation, I'm not just having a regular, whatever conversation. I'm forgetting this. No, I'm picking up on language, picking up on things that he's saying, and
Mm-hmm.
this to me helps me learn different audiences. So these are the curiosity ties into other things. That is a golden rule for me.
I
Always be
love that.
curious, always speak to somebody, always learn different things from someone because no one knows it all, even if they tell you they do.
I love that. And how about you, Jeff? Anything that stands out?
Oh, from a journalist perspective, number one, always tell the truth,
Mm-hmm.
especially when it hurts. Number two, credit your sources. Give credit where credit's due. Number three, and this is going to get some of my teacher friends upset, always have that phone on you because you never know when you need to get a video or a photo.
Yeah.
It's always super important. But yeah, I mean, as always, tell the truth, follow and give credit to your sources. Number one, journalism is a lot more of a community job than you think.
Yeah. That is a great, I love those. I love your golden rules. And on that note, we're actually going to wrap up with one last question. My question for you is, what advice do you have for students who are hoping to get a career either in public relations or journalism? And Iyube, I'm going to go to you first. What's your sage wisdom, your sage advice for students?
Fear not and work hard because if you don't put yourself out there, if you don't put yourself out there, if you don't hustle, if you don't practice your craft every day, and there's different ways to practice PR. I just spoke about one of them just recently, just now, when I was talking about speaking with people, learning from dialogue. There's a lot you could learn from others, and it's a great way. For me, it's kind of like hidden qualitative research, but that's how I learn. That's how I pick up on things. But constantly learn. And like I said, fear not, put yourself out there because I never thought I would work for Department of Defense. I will be
Mm-hmm.
totally transparent with you guys. I just applied and I laughed while I was applying. Like there's no way they're calling me. But you just never know. But when you have your work ethic and you're working consistently every day, and just growing. You have something to present, whatever
Uh-huh.
that may be. Even when we did the master's program, we had those different lessons and things that they told you to keep because you never know where you might need it in the future. Add it to your portfolio. Have these things ready because you just never know when you're in that situation like I was in where they're like, hey, we actually do want to hire you. Oh, well,
Mm-hmm.
looky here, I have this. So
Yeah.
that is my advice. I believe in the Full Sail program. I'm not trying to market or sell Full Sail to anyone, but
We did not pay him for this
yeah,
endorsement.
yeah. No one is sending me to Disney World, but it is a great opportunity, and I just believe that if anyone out there, if you believe in yourself, but you have that Kobe Bryant like Black Mamba mentality on your day-to-day ethics, you will get somewhere.
I really love that. That is really wonderful. Yeah, I have to agree with you. If I could go back and tell my younger self, like, this is what you're going to be doing one day,
Mhm.
I would have been like, no way. Like, there's no way. Right.
Right.
So I think it's like the journey is the reward, right? It's like you have to set out and you have to just keep pushing forward and fear not. I love that. DeQuan, how about you? What advice do you have for students?
I would say, as cliched as this might sound, find what you love. And what I mean by that is that there's so many different aspects to PR, and every brand and company in the world does some sort of version of PR. And very much like Iyube, I just like I did not think that I would be working where I'm working. I applied at like 11 p.m. at night and
Mm-hmm.
was also laughing while I was doing this. I was like, they're gonna be like, who is this guy? Why is he applying at this hour? Did he not sleep? But and also just piggybacking off of what Jeff said earlier, you'll feel a lot more invested in the work that you do. I think that everyone should strive to find work that they can feel proud of, that they can feel good when they wake up in the morning. And I find myself often thinking about the legacy that I want to leave, just in the world in general, and the interactions that I want to have with folks and the way that I carry myself. Um, I think that just, you know, going for what you want to do, for what you believe in, and finding what aligns with you is a lot less hard and a lot less impossible than people think. But it starts with you. And I'll close it out with the greatest bet that you can take on in the world is to bet on yourself.
I love it. Great advice. Jeff,
Excellent advice.
last but not least, what advice?
Three things I would say. Number one, be nice to yourself and others, right? Obviously be nice to others, because people will always remember it's a relationship business. People will always remember when you were kind to them, when you were compassionate to them, when you were empathetic to them. Be kind to yourself too, because there are going to be tough days out there, and not every story is going to win the Pulitzer Prize. You have to accept that. But tomorrow's another day. You can get a little bit further down the path, and that's where that curiosity can take over as well. Because I didn't quite hit it today, but you know what? Tomorrow I'm going to call this person and find out that information. And those are probably my best pieces of advice that I give to my students all the time. Give yourself a little grace. Not every story is going to win the Pulitzer, but that's what keeps us going. That's the fuel, and then you provide the spark.
That's awesome. Really great advice. So I want to thank all of our wonderful panelists for being here today. Iyube, DeQuan, thank you so much. I know you guys have busy schedules and teams that you're working with, and just thank you for taking time out of your days to give back to the Full Sail community. And Jeff, it's a pleasure to work with you, and you're just a shining light here at Full Sail. So thank you very much for all you do. But thanks, panelists, and most importantly, to our audience, thank you for tuning in and listening to us today. I hope you have a wonderful day. And if you have any questions about Full Sail, please reach out to us. We'd be happy to share. Have a great day, everyone.